The private jet touched down at Murtala Muhammad International Airport at exactly 11:47 p.m. Obiora Nwankwo unbuckled his seatbelt with a weary sigh, rubbing his tired eyes. The Dubai Business Conference had been exhausting. 3 days of back-to-back meetings, negotiations, and networking events that had left him drained. But he'd closed the deal. A partnership worth 2.3 billion naira that would expand his tech empire across the Middle East. At 42, Obiora had built an empire from nothing. His software company, Nwankwo Tech Solutions, dominated Nigeria's fintech sector. Forbes had listed him among West Africa's top 50 billionaires. He had everything a man could want: wealth, influence, respect, and a beautiful wife waiting at home. Or so he thought. "Welcome back, sir." His driver Tun greeted him at the arrival terminal. "Madam is not expecting you until tomorrow, yes?" "I want to surprise her," Obiora said, sliding into the back seat of his Mercedes S-Class. "I've been away too much lately." 15 years of marriage, Tun. "I need to do better." Tun nodded, pulling into Lagos traffic even at this late hour. The city never truly slept. Street vendors still hawked their wares under dim streetlights, and the occasional Danfo bus rumbled past, overloaded with night shift workers. Obiora's mind wandered to Adana. They'd met at a charity gala in 2010. She was the most beautiful woman in the room, elegant in a gold evening gown, her smile radiant. He pursued her relentlessly, and within 6 months, they were married. The early years had been blissful, but somewhere along the way, as his business grew and his travels increased, they drifted apart. Their conversations had become transactional. When was the last time they'd really talked? Really laughed together? He shook off the melancholy. Tonight would be different. He'd come home early, surprise her. Maybe they'd stay up talking like they used to. Reconnect. The Mercedes pulled to the gates of his Ikoyi mansion at 1:43 a.m. The compound was silent, the security lights casting long shadows across the manicured lawn. Obiora noticed Chitty's beat-up Honda parked near the servants' quarters. Their housekeeper was still here? Usually. He left by 10 p.m. Strange. Obiora muttered. "Sir?" Tund asked. "Nothing. Thank you, Tund. See you tomorrow." Obiora used his key to enter quietly, not wanting to wake the household. He'd tiptoe upstairs, slip into bed beside Adana, and in the morning surprise her with breakfast in bed. The thought made him smile. But as he climbed the marble staircase, he heard something that made his heart skip. Laughter. Soft, feminine laughter coming from the master bedroom. Adana's laughter. And beneath it, a deeper voice. A man's voice. His blood ran cold. No, it couldn't be. His mind raced for innocent explanations. Maybe she was on the phone, maybe watching a movie, but it was almost 2 a.m. His legs felt heavy as he approached the bedroom door. It was slightly ajar, a sliver of warm light spilling into the hallway. His hand trembled as he pushed it open wider. The sight before him would be forever seared into his memory. Adana was in their bed with Chitty, their 28-year-old housekeeper. They weren't fully naked, but they were partially dressed, intimate, close. Chitty's shirt was off. Adana's nightgown was disheveled. The implications were unmistakable. The room smelled of her perfume, mixed with something else. Betrayal had a scent, Obiora realized. It smelled like jasmine and lies. Time seemed to stop. Adana's eyes met his, and the color drained from her face. "Obiora!" she screamed, scrambling away from Chitty, pulling sheets around herself. You're home early." Chitty jumped up like a startled animal, grabbing his shirt from the floor. "Oga, sir, this is not. I was just..." But words failed him. What explanation could possibly suffice? Obiora stood frozen in the doorway, his luggage still in his hand. His brain couldn't process what his eyes were seeing. 15 years. 15 years of marriage, of building a life together, of trust. All of it crumbling in this single, devastating moment. "Get out," he whispered. "Obiora, please, let me explain." Adana began, tears streaming down her face. "Get out." His voice exploded, reverberating through the room. "Both of you, get out of my sight." Chitty didn't need to be told twice. He grabbed his shirt and fled, practically tripping over himself in his haste to escape. Obiora heard his footsteps thundering down the stairs, the front door slamming. But Adana remained, wrapped in the sheets that smelled of her betrayal. "Obiora, please," she sobbed. "Please, just listen to me." "Listen to what?" he roared, his hands shaking with rage. "What possible explanation could you have for this? For bringing that boy into our bed? Into our bed." "I was lonely," she cried. "You're never here. You're always traveling, always working, always. So you destroy our marriage? You sleep with the help?" He couldn't believe the words coming out of his mouth. This was something that happened to other people, not to him, not to Obiora Nwankwo. Adana slid out of bed, reaching for him. "Please, don't touch me with those hands," he said coldly, stepping back. Those hands that touched him. In our bed. The finality in his voice seemed to break something in her. She collapsed onto the floor, weeping uncontrollably. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. It was a mistake. A terrible mistake." "How long?" His voice was ice. She didn't answer, just continued crying. "How long, Adana?" 8 months, she whispered. The number hit him like a physical blow. 8 months. Not a one-time mistake. Not a moment of weakness. 8 months of deliberate, sustained betrayal. 8 months of lies. How many times had he called her from Dubai, from London, from Singapore, saying, "I love you," while she was planning her next rendezvous with their housekeeper? "I want you out of this house by tomorrow evening," he said quietly. "Obiora, please. I'm calling my lawyer in the morning. I hope you remember the prenup you signed, Adana, because you're about to remember it very well." The prenuptial agreement had been his lawyer's idea, not his. He'd trusted Adana completely, but his lawyer had insisted, protect the assets, protect the business. In cases of infidelity, the prenup was clear. The guilty party received a minimal settlement, enough to survive, nothing more. Adana's tears turned to panic. "You can't? Obiora, where will I go? I have nothing without you. You should have thought of that before you invited Chitty into our bed." He turned and walked out, leaving her sobbing on the floor. He went to one of the guest rooms, locked the door, and sat on the edge of the bed in the darkness. His hands were still shaking. His chest felt tight. 15 years of marriage ended in a single moment. The woman he'd loved, the woman he'd built a life with, had destroyed everything for a man young enough to be her younger brother. As dawn broke over Lagos, Obiora sat alone in the guest room, staring at nothing, feeling the ruins of his marriage settle around him like ash. He didn't know it then, but this was only the beginning. The betrayal he'd witnessed was just the surface. Beneath it lay something far darker, far more sinister than a simple affair. Something that would soon threaten not just his marriage, but his very life. Oh no, he caught the eye in the ACT. After 15 years of marriage, with a housekeeper. If your heart is racing right now, smash that like button and subscribe to African Tales by Zion. Drop a comment. What would you do in Obiora's position? Forgive or divorce? Next chapter shows his devastating decision, and it gets worse. Share this video. Turn on notifications. Obiora didn't sleep. How could he? Every time he closed his eyes, he saw them together. Adana's disheveled nightgown, Chitty's bare chest, their guilty faces. The images played on an endless loop in his mind, torturing him with details he wished he could erase. At 6 a.m., he heard movement in the hallway. Adana's footsteps, hesitant and quiet. She knocked softly on the guest room door. "Obiora, please, can we talk?" He said nothing. After a few minutes, her footsteps retreated. At 7:30 a.m., he called his lawyer. "Barrister Okonkwo, it's Obiora. I need you to initiate divorce proceedings immediately. Grounds, adultery. Yes, I have evidence. I caught her myself. How soon can we move? Good. I want her out of my house by tonight." The words felt surreal coming out of his mouth. Divorce. After 15 years. But what choice did he have? She'd made her choice when she brought Chitty into their bed. At 9 a.m., he finally emerged from the guest room. He found Adana in the kitchen, her eyes swollen and red from crying. She'd clearly been up all night, too. She looked terrible. Her hair was a mess, her face puffy, still wearing the same nightgown from last night. The nightgown that Chitty had touched. "Obiora," she started, her voice hoarse. "Please, let me explain everything." He poured himself coffee, his movements deliberate and controlled. "There's nothing to explain, Adana. I saw what I saw. You don't understand. Then help me understand." He turned to face her, his voice dangerously calm. "Explain me how my wife ends up in bed with our housekeeper. I'm listening." She wrapped her arms around herself, tears already forming again. "You're never here, Obiora. You're always gone. London, Dubai, Singapore, South Africa. I wake up alone. I eat alone. I sleep alone. For months at a time. So you decided to fill the void with Chitty?" "I was lonely," she cried. "Do you know what it's like? Being married but feeling like a widow? You call once a day for 5 minutes. Ask about my day. Then you're gone again. Off to another meeting, another deal, another country." Obiora felt a flash of anger. "I was building our future. Everything I did was for us, for this family. We don't have a family. Obiora, we don't have children. We just have money and this big empty house." The barb about children stung. They'd tried for years, gone through fertility treatments, consultations with specialists in 3 countries. Nothing worked. Eventually, they'd stopped trying, stopped talking about it. Another crack in their foundation he'd chosen to ignore. "So that's your justification?" he asked coldly. "I work too much. We have no children. So you sleep with the help?" "It wasn't like that. It just happened. For 8 months it just happened? How does an affair last 8 months by accident, Adana?" She flinched at the word affair. "He was kind to me. He listened. He made me feel seen. He's 28 years old. He's a housekeeper. What could you possibly have in common with him?" "Age doesn't matter when someone actually pays attention to you," she shot back. "When was the last time you asked me how I really felt? When was the last time you took me on a date? Obiora? When was the last time you looked at me like I was more than just a billionaire's wife?" He wanted to argue, to defend himself, but somewhere deep down, he knew she had a point. When had their marriage become so transactional? When had they stopped being partners and started being roommates who happened to share a last name? But that still didn't justify what she'd done. "When did it start?" he asked, his voice quieter now. Adana wiped her eyes. "Last year, you were in Singapore for that 3-week conference. I was here alone. Chitty stayed late one night to fix the generator. We talked. He told me about his dreams, his struggles to find work after graduating university. I felt sorry for him. Pity turned into romance? How touching." "It wasn't romance," she said desperately. "At first, it was just conversation. Someone to talk to. But then one night, I was drinking wine, feeling sorry for myself, and he was there, and I don't need the details." "You asked." "I asked when it started. Not for a play-by-play of how you betrayed our marriage vows." Silence fell between them, heavy and suffocating. "Do you love him?" Obiora asked suddenly. Adana looked down at her hands. I don't know. I thought I did. He made me feel alive again. Made me feel wanted. Did you ever think about what this would do to us? To our marriage?" "I thought you wouldn't care," she whispered. "You're so focused on your business, your empire. I thought I was just another asset to you. The wife who looks good at charity galas and corporate events." Obiora set down his coffee cup carefully. His hands were shaking again. "I loved you, Adana. I still love you. Yes, I worked too much. Yes, I traveled too much. Yes, I should have been more present. But I never betrayed you. I never gave you a reason to doubt my faithfulness." "I know," she sobbed. "I know, and I hate myself for it. Obiora, please. I'll end it with Chitty. I'll do anything. Please don't divorce me. We can go to counseling. We can fix this. Please." "You've had 8 months to end it, Adana. You only want to end it now because you got caught." "That's not true. I was going to end it. I swear." He didn't believe her. Why would he? Do you have any idea what the prenup says? He asked. In cases of proven infidelity, you leave with almost nothing. A settlement of 5 million naira. That's it. No access to my accounts. No stake in the properties. No monthly allowance. 5 million naira, and you walk away from a life worth billions. The color drained from her face. She'd forgotten about the prenup. Or maybe she'd never taken it seriously. Obiora, where will I go? What will I do? The same thing you should have thought about before sleeping with Chitty, he said coldly. Figure it out. You're really going to do this? Throw away 15 years over one mistake. 8 months isn't one mistake, Adana. It's a choice. A choice you made every single time you let him into our bed. Every time you lied to my face. Every time you said, I love you on the phone while planning your next encounter with him. She collapsed into a chair, her face in her hands, shoulders shaking with sobs. Obiora felt a twisted satisfaction watching her break down. Good. Let her feel a fraction of the pain she caused him. I want you out by 6 p.m. today, he said. My lawyer will be in touch about the divorce proceedings. You can take your personal belongings. Everything else stays. Obiora, please. 6 p.m. Adana, don't make me call security. He walked out of the kitchen, leaving her crying at the table. As he climbed the stairs back to the guest room, he pulled out his phone and made another call. Chief Ahmadi, it's Obiora. I need your security firm's best investigators. I want to know everything about my housekeeper, Chitty, and I mean everything. Criminal record, family background, past employment. Everything. Money is no object. Because something didn't sit right with Obiora. The way Chitty had looked at him last night. There had been guilt, yes. Fear, definitely. But underneath it all, there had been something else. Something calculating. A housekeeper seducing a billionaire's wife? That story was as old as time. But Obiora hadn't built a business empire by taking things at face value. He'd learned to look beneath the surface, to see the patterns others missed. And his gut was telling him there was more to Chitty than a simple affair. Much more. 8 months. She was in love with a housekeeper. And now she's losing everything. If you can't believe this, smash that like button and subscribe to African Tales by Zion. Comment below, does Adana deserve this? Or is Obiora being too harsh? Next chapter reveals what Chitty was really after. And it's not just Adana. You won't see this coming. Share this video. Turn on notifications. 2 days had passed since the discovery. Adana had moved out, staying at a small hotel in Yaba. Obiora had the locks changed, the security codes updated. He threw himself into work, trying to drown his pain in spreadsheets and conference calls. But every night, alone in that big house, the emptiness consumed him. His investigator, Chief Ahmadi, hadn't found anything suspicious about Chitty yet. Clean record, university graduate from Nsukka, came from a poor family in Enugu. On paper, he was exactly what he appeared to be, a struggling young man trying to make ends meet. But Obiora's instincts still nagged at him. Something was off. Meanwhile, Adana was drowning in her own misery. The hotel room was tiny, depressing. Her friends had stopped answering her calls. News of the scandal had spread through their social circle like wildfire. The billionaire's wife caught with a housekeeper. She was a joke, a cautionary tale, a laughingstock. She sat on the edge of the lumpy hotel bed, staring at her phone. Her bank account showed exactly 5,000 naira. The prenup hadn't been finalized yet, but Obiora had frozen all her access to their joint accounts. She had no money, no home, no future. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Meet me. We need to talk. See. Chitty. She should delete it. Block the number. But desperation made people do foolish things. Against every shred of common sense, she replied, Where? Mama Cass Restaurant, Ikeja. 7 p.m. Come alone. That evening, Adana wore sunglasses and a headscarf, trying to be inconspicuous. Mama Cass was busy, loud, a place where nobody would notice or care about one more diner. She found Chitty in a corner booth, looking nervous but determined. You shouldn't have contacted me, she hissed, sliding into the seat across from him. I needed to see you, Chitty said, reaching for her hand. She pulled away. Are you insane? If Obiora finds out. I don't care about Obiora, Chitty said intensely. I care about you, Adana. I love you. The words should have warmed her. Instead, they fell hollow. Love? Look where your love has got me, Chitty. I've lost everything. I know, and I'm sorry. But we can still be together. Really together. How? I'm about to be divorced with nothing. You're a housekeeper with no job and no prospects. What kind of future is that? Chitty leaned closer, lowering his voice. What if I told you there's a way we could be together? Truly together? With money, with freedom, with everything we want. Adana's heart started pounding. Something in his tone frightened her. What are you talking about? He glanced around, making sure no one was listening. You're still legally married to Obiora. If something were to happen to him, you'd inherit everything. The house, the company, the offshore accounts. Billions, Adana, all of it would be yours. The implication hung in the air like poison gas. Are you suggesting? She couldn't even say the word. I'm suggesting that Obiora is going to destroy you in this divorce, Chitty said calmly. The prenup will leave you with nothing. You'll be 40 years old, broke, and alone. Is that what you want? Of course not. But what you're suggesting is... Think about it, he interrupted. Lagos has armed robberies every week. Rich men in big houses are prime targets. Obiora lives alone now. You're gone. Most of the staff are gone. He's vulnerable. Stop, Adana whispered, her hand shaking. Just stop talking. But Chitty continued, his voice hypnotic, persuasive. I know people. Professionals. They can make it look like a robbery gone wrong. Obiora resists, tries to be a hero, gets shot. Tragic. The police investigate, find nothing. You're the grieving widow. No one suspects. You're talking about murder. I'm talking about survival. His voice rose slightly before he controlled it. You think Obiora cares about you? He's going to humiliate you in court, drag your name through the mud, leave you with nothing. Is that fair? After 15 years of marriage? Adana's head was spinning. This was insane. Completely insane. She should walk out right now, call the police, report this conversation. But she didn't. How? How would it even work? She heard herself asking. God help her. She was actually considering it. Chitty's eyes lit up. He'd been waiting for that question. Simple. I have contacts who do this kind of work. Armed robbery specialists. They'll break in at night. You'll be conveniently staying at your hotel with a solid alibi. Obiora resists. That's just his personality. Everyone knows he's stubborn and proud. They shoot him, take some valuables to make it look real. Gone. And then what? I just inherit everything. After a respectable period of mourning, yes. 6 months, maybe a year, we quietly start seeing each other. We leave Nigeria, start fresh somewhere else. Dubai, maybe, or London. We'll have billions. Adana, we can live like royalty. It was madness, pure evil. Everything about this was wrong. But Adana thought about Obiora's cold eyes when he'd ordered her out of the house. The prenup that would leave her destitute. The social circle that had already abandoned her. The rest of her life spent in poverty and shame. I need time to think, she said weakly. We don't have time, Chitty pressed. The divorce proceedings move fast. Once that prenup is enforced, you get $5 million, and that's it. You'll never have another chance. They sat in that restaurant for 3 hours. Chitty painted pictures of their future together. The yacht in Monaco, the villa in Tuscany, the freedom to go anywhere, do anything. He was charming, persuasive, making it all sound so reasonable, so justified. She'd loved Obiora once. But that love had died slowly over the years, suffocated by his absence, his devotion to work over her. And now he was going to punish her, destroy her for one mistake. Wasn't she entitled to protect herself? By the time they left the restaurant, Adana had made a decision that would damn her soul. Okay, she whispered. Do it. Chitty smiled and kissed her hand. You won't regret this, my love. In 1 week, we'll be free. I promise you. They agreed on the details. The robbery would happen in 7 days. Adana would establish an alibi. She'd check into a hotel in Abuja, far from Lagos, with proof of her presence there. Credit card receipts, security footage, witnesses. The perfect alibi. As she walked back to her car, Adana felt numb. She'd just agreed to murder her husband, the man she'd spent 15 years with, the father of the children they never had. What had she become? But then she remembered his face, cold, disgusted, rejecting. You chose betrayal. Now live with the consequences. Fine. She'd live with consequences. Just not the ones he'd planned. What Adana didn't know, what she couldn't know, was that she wasn't Chitty's partner in this scheme. She was just another victim. The restaurant where they'd met had security cameras, and Chitty had been very careful to make sure his face was hidden, but hers was clearly visible. Every word of their conversation had been quietly recorded on his phone. Evidence, insurance, leverage. Because Chitty's plan was far more complex than Adana imagined. The robbery was real. Obiora would die, but so would Adana, eventually, once the inheritance was secure. Once she'd transfer the wealth to accounts Chitty controlled, she'd have a tragic accident. Maybe a car crash. Maybe suicide from the guilt of her husband's death. The details didn't matter. What mattered was that Chitty would walk away with billions, and both Obiora and Adana would be buried. 2 birds, 1 stone. As he drove away from the restaurant, Chitty smiled. Everything was going exactly according to plan. These rich people were so predictable, so easy to manipulate. In 7 days, Obiora and Nwankwo would be dead, and his foolish wife had just signed her own death warrant. Oh my God, did she just agree to murder her husband? Is Chitty really in love, or is this part of CON? If you're shocked, smash that like button and subscribe to African Tales by Zion. Drop a comment. Can Adana still back out, or is it too late? Next chapter reveals the night of the robbery, and Obiora is not unprepared. This gets crazy. Share this video. Turn on notifications. 6 days had passed. The robbery was scheduled for tonight. Adana sat in her hotel room in Abuja, her hands shaking. She'd checked in that morning, made sure to be seen by multiple hotel staff, used her credit card at the restaurant, the spa, the gift shop. Her alibi was rock solid, but guilt was eating her alive. She tried to call Chitty twice yesterday, to call it off, to stop this madness, but he hadn't answered. He'd only sent a text. Stay strong. By tomorrow morning, you'll be free. I love you. She wanted to believe him. She wanted to believe this was all for love, that they'd really be together, that the end justified the means. But somewhere deep in her soul, she knew she'd made a deal with the devil. It was 11:47 p.m. In 13 minutes, armed men would break into Obiora's house. In 15 minutes, her husband would be dead. She'd killed him, as surely as if she'd pulled the trigger herself. Adana dropped to her knees and prayed for the first time in years. God, forgive me. Please forgive me. I don't know what I've done. But it was too late for prayers. Meanwhile, in Lagos, Obiora sat in his study, wide awake. On the desk before him was a sophisticated surveillance system showing multiple camera feeds. In his hand was a phone connected directly to the police commissioner. 5 days ago, Chief Amadi had finally found something. Chitty wasn't just a housekeeper. His real name was Chidera Okafor, and he had a record. Not a criminal record. He'd been too smart for that, but a pattern. 3 wealthy married women in the past 5 years, all of whom had lost money shortly after hiring him. Nothing provable, but the pattern was clear. Then Chief Amadi had done something brilliant. He'd bugged the restaurant where Adana and Chitty met. Every conversation recorded, every word preserved. When Obiora listened to the recording of them plotting his murder, he'd felt something beyond rage, a cold, calculated fury. They wanted to kill him. His wife and their housekeeper wanted him dead. Instead of confronting them, Obiora had done something smarter. He'd let the plan proceed. He'd contacted Police Commissioner Okafor, no relation to Chitty, explained everything, provided the recordings. Together, they'd set a trap. Tonight, Chitty's armed robbers would break into the house. But instead of finding a helpless billionaire, they'd find 10 armed police officers waiting in the dark. Obiora checked his watch. Midnight. Commissioner, they should be here any moment, he said quietly into his phone. My men are in position, Mr. Nwankwo. Commissioner Okafor replied. Stay in the safe room as we discussed. Let us handle this. But Obiora wanted to see their faces when they realized they'd been caught. He stayed in his study, watching the security feeds. At 12:03 a.m., 5 figures dressed in black approached the compound wall. They moved with practiced efficiency. Professionals, just as Chitty had promised Adana. They cut through the fence, disabled what they thought was the alarm system. Obiora had let them think that, while keeping the real system active. They approached the house, armed with pistols and machetes. The leader tried the back door. It opened. Obiora had left it unlocked as planned. They entered quietly, spreading through the house. 3 went upstairs toward the bedrooms. 2 stayed downstairs. And then the lights exploded on. Police! On the ground now. Drop your weapons. The chaos was beautiful. The robbers panicked, trying to run, but police officers emerged from every shadow. There was a brief scuffle, a warning shot fired into the ceiling, and then it was over. All 5 men were on the ground, handcuffed, their weapons scattered across the marble floor. Obiora emerged from his study, his face calm and cold. The leader of the robbers, a muscular man in his 30s, looked up at Obiora with shock and fury. You were supposed to be asleep. This was supposed to be easy. Nothing about this was going to be easy, Obiora said quietly. Did Chitty tell you it would be? The man's eyes widened. How do you? I know everything. The question is, do you know everything? Do you know what Chitty's real plan was? Commissioner Okafor stepped forward. Gentlemen, you're under arrest for attempted murder, conspiracy to commit murder, armed robbery, and breaking and entering. But if you cooperate, we might be able to reduce your sentences. The 5 men looked at each other. They were career criminals, but they weren't stupid. Life imprisonment versus maybe 15 years with cooperation? Easy choice. The leader spoke first. We want a deal. Full immunity. Not happening, the commissioner said. But we can talk about reduced sentences. Tell us everything. And they did. Chitty had hired them 2 weeks ago. Promised them 2 million naira each. 1 million up front, 1 million after the job. They were supposed to kill Obiora, make it look like a robbery, take some valuables for authenticity. But then the leader said something that made Obiora's blood run cold. There was a second job, the man said, after this one. Chitty said in a few months, maybe 6, there'd be another target. A woman, his ex-girlfriend. He called her, said she'd be coming into a lot of money. And once she transferred it to him, we needed to eliminate her, make it look like suicide or an accident. Adana, Obiora whispered. Yeah, that was the name, the robber confirmed. Chitty said she was stupid and greedy, that she'd do anything for money. He said after we killed you and she inherited everything, he'd manipulate her into giving him access to the accounts. Then we'd kill her and split the money. He'd get billions. We'd get 20 million naira each. The room fell silent. Obiora felt a strange emotion wash over him. His wife had betrayed him, plotted to kill him. But she'd also been manipulated, used, set up to die just like him. She was a victim, too, in her own way. Where's Chitty now? Commissioner Okafor demanded. Don't know. He said he'd be far from Lagos tonight. Probably has an alibi set up. The commissioner made a call. All units. We have a warrant for Chitara Okafor, also known as Chitty. Last known address. He rattled off the information. Then he turned to Obiora. We need to bring in your wife, too, sir. She's complicit in this. Obiora nodded numbly. She's in Abuja, Trandcorp Hilton Hotel, room 412. How did you? I've been having her followed since she moved out. I wanted to know if she'd try something. Within 20 minutes, Abuja police were knocking on Adana's hotel room door. When she answered, still dressed, clearly unable to sleep, they arrested her on the spot. Her screams echoed through the hotel hallway. No, No, I didn't do it. It wasn't me. It was Chitty. He planned everything. But her protests fell on deaf ears. The recording of their conversation at Mama Cass' restaurant was damning. Okay, do it. Her own voice said on the tape. She'd agreed to murder. No amount of manipulation excused that. By 3 a.m., Adana was in a police cell in Lagos, brought back on an emergency flight. She sat in the cold concrete room, wrapped in a thin blanket, shivering and crying. How had it come to this? How had her life fallen apart so completely? At 4:15 a.m., they found Chitty at Murtala Muhammad International Airport, trying to board a flight to South Africa using a fake passport. He smiled when they arrested him. Actually smiled. "You can't prove anything," he said confidently. "I'm just a poor housekeeper trying to leave the country." "Is that a crime?" "We have recordings of you and Mrs. Nwankwo planning her husband's murder," Commissioner Okafor said. "We have 5 men in custody who confess that you hired them. We have financial records showing you transferred money to their accounts. You're done, Chitty." For the first time, the smile faltered. At 6 a.m., Obiora visited the police station. He saw Dana through the one-way glass. She looked broken, destroyed, a shell of the woman he'd married. "I want to talk to her," he said. "Sir, I don't think." "Please, just 5 minutes." They led him into the interrogation room. Adana looked up, and when she saw him, she broke down completely. "Obiora, oh God, Obiora, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean, I never wanted. He said we'd be together. I'm so sorry." He sat across from her, silent. "He was going to kill you too," Obiora said quietly. "After I died and you inherited everything. He was going to kill you and take the money." Adana's face went white. "What?" "The men he hired confessed. You were never his partner. Adana, you were his victim, just like me." She put her head on the table and sobbed. Great, heaving sob that shook her entire body. "I loved you," Obiora said softly. "I really did. Maybe I didn't show it enough. Maybe I worked too much. But I never would have hurt you. Never would have betrayed you like this." "I know," she wept. "I know, and I'm so sorry. I've destroyed everything. My life is over." "Yes," he agreed. "It is." He stood to leave. "Obiora?" Her voice was small, broken. He turned back. "Can you ever forgive me?" He looked at this woman he'd spent 15 years with, the woman he'd loved, the woman who'd plotted to murder him. "I don't know," he said honestly. "Maybe someday, but not today." And he walked out, leaving her to face the consequences of her choices. Outside, the Lagos sun was rising, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. A new day was beginning. But for Adana and Chitty, the darkness was just starting. What? Chitty was going to kill her too. After she helped him? If you can't breathe right now, smash that like button and subscribe to African Tales by Zion. Comment. Does Adana deserve any mercy? Or should she rot in prison? Next chapter reveals what happens to both of them, and the ending will shock you. Share this video. Turn on notifications. The trial of Adana Nwankwo and Chidera Okafor became the biggest scandal Lagos had seen in years. The media descended like vultures. Billionaire's wife plots murder, screamed the headlines. House helps deadly love trap. Photos of Adana being led into court in handcuffs went viral. Blog posts dissected every detail of the affair. The murder plot, the dramatic arrest. The trial began 3 months after that fateful night. The courtroom was packed every single day. Journalists, curious onlookers, society women who'd once called Adana their friend, but now whisper behind manicured hands. Chitty's lawyer tried to claim innocence. "My client is a simple man who fell in love with the wrong woman. Mrs. Nwankwo seduced him, manipulated him, forced him into this scheme. He's a victim here." But the evidence was overwhelming. The prosecution presented the restaurant recording where Chitty clearly proposed a murder plan. Bank records showing he'd hired the armed robbers. Text messages to his criminal contacts. And the most damning evidence of all, the robbers' testimony that Chitty had planned to kill Adana too, once she'd serve her purpose. When that testimony was read in court, Adana visibly recoiled. The courtroom gasped. Even the judge looked disturbed. "Mr. Okafor," the prosecutor said, approaching Chitty in the witness box, "is it true that you told these men to eliminate Mrs. Nwankwo after she transferred her inheritance to you?" Chitty's lawyer objected, but the prosecutor had the signed confession from the robbers. For the first time, Chitty's smooth, charming facade cracked. "She was a means to an end," he said coldly. "You think I actually loved her? Look at her." The courtroom erupted. Adana buried her face in her hands, sobbing. "Order!" the judge shouted, banging his gavel. The prosecutor continued, relentless. "So you admit you manipulated Mrs. Nwankwo? Seduced her specifically to gain access to her husband's wealth?" Chitty's lawyer was frantically signaling him to stop talking, but Chitty's arrogance had taken over. "Of course I did. It's what I do. These rich women, they're all the same, lonely, desperate, stupid. They practically beg to be used." The prosecutor smiled. "No further questions, Your Honor." Chitty's lawyer dropped his head into his hands. His client had just confessed to everything. When it was Adana's turn to testify, she looked like a ghost. She'd lost weight. Her skin was sallow, her eyes hollow. Prison had not been kind to her. Her lawyer, Barrister Okoro, tried to paint her as a victim. My client was in an emotionally vulnerable state. Her marriage was failing. She felt abandoned, lonely. Chitara Okafor is a skilled manipulator who exploited her weakness. But she still agreed to murder, the prosecutor countered. "We have her on recording saying, and I quote, 'Okay, do it.'" She knew exactly what she was agreeing to. Adana took the stand, her voice barely above a whisper. "I was wrong. There's no excuse for what I did. I was angry, hurt, scared of losing everything. But that doesn't justify plotting to kill my husband. Do you love Chitara Okafor?" the prosecutor asked. "No," Adana said, tears streaming down her face. "I don't think I ever did. I was just so lonely. And he made me feel wanted. Special. I was a fool. Did you know he planned to kill you too?" "No. God, no. When I found out," she broke down completely. "I would have been just another body. Another problem eliminated. I meant nothing to him." The prosecutor presented evidence of Chitty's past. 2 other wealthy women who mysteriously lost large sums of money after brief affairs with him. One woman in Abuja who nearly died in a car accident after transferring 300 million naira to an offshore account Chitty controlled. This wasn't Chitty's first rodeo. He was a professional con artist, and Adana had been his biggest mark yet. When Obiora testified, the courtroom fell silent. Here was the man who'd almost been murdered, facing his wife and her lover in court. "Mr. Nwankwo," the prosecutor asked, "do you believe your wife truly intended to have you killed?" Obiora looked at Adana. She couldn't meet his eyes. "I believe she made a terrible choice in a moment of weakness," he said carefully. "I believe Chitara Okafor manipulated her, preyed on her vulnerability. But I also believe she said yes when she should have said no. She chose revenge over conscience. And that choice has consequences. Do you want justice, Mr. Nwankwo?" "I want the truth. I want Chitara Okafor to pay for his crimes. As for my wife," he paused, "she's already paying. Every day in that cell. Every time she looks in the mirror and sees what she's become. Prison will be punishment, yes. But the real punishment is living with what she did for the rest of her life." Adana broke down sobbing in the defendant's box. The trial lasted 6 weeks. Finally, it was time for the verdict. The judge looked at Chitty first. "Chitara Okafor, you've been found guilty of conspiracy to commit murder, attempted murder, fraud, manipulation, and intent to commit multiple homicides. Your actions show a pattern of predatory behavior, targeting vulnerable women for financial gain with no regard for human life. This court sentences you to life imprisonment with no possibility of parole." Chitty showed no emotion. He simply stared straight ahead, his mind already plotting his next move, his next appeal. Then the judge turned to Adana. "Mrs. Adana Nwankwo, you've been found guilty of conspiracy to commit murder. However, this court recognizes that you were manipulated by a skilled predator. You showed remorse, cooperated with authorities, and by the grace of your husband's testimony, this court sees fit to show some measure of mercy. You are sentenced to 7 years imprisonment. Adana collapsed. 7 years. It could have been life, like Chitty. 7 years was mercy. Obiora closed his eyes. It was over. 5 years later. Adana was released early for good behavior. She emerged from Kirikiri maximum security prison a completely different woman. Thinner, quieter, carrying an invisible weight that would never fully lift. Her younger sister picked her up. No one else came. "What will you do now?" her sister asked. "I don't know," Adana admitted. "Start over, I guess." She started small. A tiny apartment in Suralere, a job at a community center. And slowly, carefully, she began talking to other women about her story. Women in abusive relationships. Women who'd been manipulated. Women who'd made terrible choices and needed to hear that redemption was possible. She founded a small NGO called Second Chances that warned women about romance scams, psychological manipulation, and the dangers of making decisions from a place of hurt and anger. The first year, she helped 20 women. The second year, 50. By the third year, over 200 women had gone through her program. She never remarried, never even dated. She'd killed that part of herself in that restaurant with Chitty 5 years ago. One evening, at a charity fundraiser for domestic violence victims, she saw him across the room. Obiora. He'd remarried, a kind, gentle woman named Chinyu who worked as a pediatrician. They had a daughter now, a beautiful little girl with her father's eyes. He looked happy, truly happy. Their eyes met across the crowded ballroom. For a moment, time stopped. 15 years of marriage, betrayal, murder plots, trials, prison, all of it hung in the air between them. Obiora nodded. Just once, a small acknowledgement. Adana nodded back, tears forming in her eyes. Then he turned back to his wife and daughter, and Adana turned away, letting him go completely for the first time. She walked outside, breathing in the Lagos night air. Somewhere in the distance, she could hear music, laughter, life continuing. She'd made terrible choices. She'd plotted murder. She destroyed her own life and nearly destroyed Obiora's. But she was still here, still breathing, still trying to make amends, one day at a time. Chitty was still in prison. She heard he'd tried to appeal 3 times, all denied. He'd be in there until he died. And somehow, that felt right. He destroyed so many lives, manipulated so many women. Let him rot in that cell, thinking about all the money he'd never get to spend. Adana pulled out her phone and looked at her schedule. Tomorrow, she was speaking at a women's shelter in Acadia. 15 women were waiting to hear her story, to learn from her mistakes. She couldn't undo what she'd done. Couldn't take back those words. Okay, do it. But she could spend the rest of her life making sure other women didn't make the same mistake. It wasn't redemption. Not really. Some things you can't redeem. But it was something, a small light in the darkness she created. And for now, that would have to be enough. Chittera Chitty, Okafor remains in prison at Kirikiri Maximum Security Prison, serving life without parole. He has shown no remorse. Adana Nwankwo's NGO Second Chances has helped over 500 women escape manipulative relationships and avoid romance scams as of 2024. Obiora Nwankwo remarried in 2023 and has 1 daughter. He donated 50 million naira to his ex-wife's NGO anonymously. Some mistakes you cannot undo. You can only learn from them and help others not make them. Wow! Chitty got life in prison. Adana got 7 years, and she's now helping other women. If this story gave you chills, smash that like button and subscribe to African Tales by Zion. Drop a comment. Was 7 years fair? Too much? Too little? What's the biggest lesson from this story? Thank you for watching until the end. Share this with someone who needs to hear about consequences, manipulation, and second chances. Check out our next powerful story. Turn on notifications for more African Tales by Zion.